want to welcome Grace Weatherly to the program. She's an attorney up the road in Denton, Texas. Good morning, Grace.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us this morning. And so we're going to talk about veterans who've been exposed to burn pits. And I've got to be honest with you, and most people, this was not on our radar until perhaps last week when Biden mentioned it.
Well, it's been a problem since our veterans returned from Afghanistan. For over 10 years, they've been suffering symptoms and effects from being exposed to heavy metals and all types of toxins from these burn pits. And what the burn pits are is on our Army bases, all our military bases over in Afghanistan and in all of the Middle East, we have taken upon ourselves to dispose of all of our refuse, everything from human waste to Jeeps to tires to jet fuel to anything that these giant cities, which is what the bases actually are, of course, anything they make and need to be disposed of are burned in these massive pits. Of course, nothing like that would happen in the United States, but over there we took advantage of the fact that there weren't any regulations on our polluting the environment, and so all of these heavy metals and toxins have gone up in the air and combined with the particulate matter of the sand, the constant dust and sand that they're breathing in just from the natural environment. Our veterans have come home with a bunch of horrible and unexplained symptoms, everything from migraines to high blood pressure, sexual dysfunction, asthma, of course, all kinds of breathing problems, COPD. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Some of them are readily identifiable, like high blood pressure. Anyone can identify that and treat it. But when you have a constellation of symptoms that really don't make sense in a young person, if you had gone to Iraq or Iran and served over there in the Gulf War, when you came home, you were entitled to benefits and treatment and those kind of weird constellation of symptoms under an umbrella called Gulf War syndrome. But if you went to Afghanistan, you don't get that. So that's the first point. It's fundamentally unfair to treat our veterans differently, depending on where they were involuntarily placed. So if you went to Afghanistan, you can't get benefits for Gulf War syndrome. That's something that Congress could change permanently, and I think they should. But also, Lloyd Austin, our Secretary of Defense, could change that today if he wanted to, by simply changing the regulation and including Afghanistan in the definition of Southwest Asia. The other big point is that our veterans who come home from over there, most of them don't have the resources to hire an epidemiologist to say, well, this is why you're having all these weird symptoms. It's because you've got all these toxins in your blood. They don't have the resources to go get the testing, to test to see all the exposure and damage that's been done. The Veterans Administration is supposed to be providing that, and they're not. And we're getting no explanation why they're not. I've been representing a young man who's, for the last 8 years, the VA has been saying repeatedly, test him, test him, test him. He goes to the VA, they don't test him. No explanation. It's a frustrating situation.
Well, it sounds like even the people in Washington that are wearing the bars and all the medals and everything else and all that, are they not sounding the alarm? I mean, is the first line of getting some help on this, the leaders down there, the Joint Chiefs of Staff and all that bunch, that they identify something that's a problem, or is everybody just kind of upstream playing like it doesn't exist?
I think that there is a culture of believing that veterans are playing the system and trying to get disability benefits and treatment for conditions they don't need. And I think the American public who looked at these denials of claims for benefits would be appalled to find out that our tax dollars are going to deny young men benefits. When you go in the military, they do a thorough exam. when you get discharged, they do a thorough exam, right? So they know right there whether or not you have been exposed or you have problems that you didn't have when you were coming in. But there's more to it than that. This type of long-term environmental exposure sometimes takes years to surface. But the mindset of the VA regional offices seems to be that everybody's faking it and is just trying to scam the system.
Well, I don't even know how far back I can go and say aggregate, but I know the last 4 or 5 presidents, every time they give a little chit-chat to the joint House and Senate, State of the Union deal, forever it's been take care of the veterans. And it's frustrated me. I'm not a veteran. I mean, I can't say that I've experienced, but I know folks that are. And it's thought that my thought is it can't be this complicated, but every time you turn around, you hear how complicated it is. And I can't imagine that legislative leaders in Washington aren't serious about this. You need a Jon Stewart on your side to go down there and give them a lecture and make something happen.
Yeah, I agree, because here's the thing. I agree with you. We always hear from the president that we're going to take care of our veterans, and everybody claps, right? And like I said, Congress could pass the bill that is before them now to fix this problem permanently, and they should. But a regulation would change the definition in one stroke of a pen. Now, why President Biden's administration has not done that, I don't know. Could it be that because nobody gets down on that level that the lawyers do, that they don't understand the words that need to be changed? Maybe, because I'm like you. When I look at these articles in the media, nobody's talking about what I'm talking about right here. That one word is all that needs to be changed to get veterans Gulf War syndrome benefits.
And Grace, we'll talk about the denials and couldn't a veteran suffering from one group of symptoms or another, are they just being denied treatment all the way across the board?
Yes, and even testing for it. So for the last 8 years, my client has submitted his claim. It's been denied. We've complained that they didn't follow the rules when they denied the claim. It gets remanded back to start all over again. And then the last 3 times the claims have been denied, every time the Bureau of Veteran Appeals up in D.C. sides with me and says, you've got to do this testing. He was exposed to the burn pits daily. My client's job over at the Army base was construction. So every single day they took construction materials to the burn pits. There's no argument that he was exposed to those burn pits every single day. And they won't do the testing that the VA's own studies have shown needs to be done to determine if these symptoms he's having, which are serious, have been caused by this exposure to these toxins.
And can you tell us some of the things that he is suffering from?
The worst is daily migraine, and his medical records are very well documented. He's tried every kind of treatment under the sun. Ironically, the VA is giving him treatment now for that because they have now accepted his claim for PTSD. And under the PTSD umbrella, they are treating his migraines. But he has daily migraines. He had no history of migraines before he ever went before he went to Afghanistan. He had been deployed before and was in the National Guard Reserve when they called him back up and sent him to Afghanistan away, and he had to leave his wife and his children, in his 30s. He got called back to go over to Afghanistan to do construction work on a military base.
And Grace, you over the course of this case or others that you've worked on, you've had 3 opinions from the Bureau of Veterans Affairs issued. What were those?
The first 2, they've sided with me on all 3. The first 2, they said, send it back. You didn't even tell us the reason why you denied it. And the last one, they sent them all back and said, well, they sent most of them back and said, we told you to do this testing. Here's the exact kind of testing to do. Do it. But they also did accept some of his claims. But, again, their claims on individual things, he's still not being covered under the umbrella of the Gulf War syndrome. And all that does is it makes it so much easier for the veterans to get benefits. So it's called a presumed connection. If you had gone to Iraq or Iran in the Gulf War and you came home with all these kind of symptoms, they presumed it was connected to your service. In Afghanistan, they don't make any presumption, even though the conditions were actually worse. Because, like I said, in addition to the sand and dust and all of that stuff they're breathing in with no PPE, they're exposed to these burn pits, which were much, much larger than the ones that had been built before, because these bases are massive. They're huge bases.
So these veterans that are afflicted with this syndrome, are they having to, hire people like you to help navigate them through the system?
Right. So it's very difficult to find lawyers who are willing to do this kind of work. The Bureau of Veterans Administration will pay ultimately some small fee, but basically I consider this all pro bono work because you can't pay the bills with it. So it's very difficult for veterans to find this kind of representation, and most of the time they're having to rely on nonprofit organizations who aren't lawyers to file their claims for them.
Oh, I've got a friend that's a therapist that serves is counseling for several veterans here in this area, and just quit charging them.
Right.
I mean, the pay was so slow, and there was a debate about whether they needed continued service, and it was like, no, I'm not going to let these. I'm not going to leave these guys hanging. I'm just going to keep doing it till everybody gets better and forget charging anybody anything. That's the only way to keep going.
Exactly. I mean, these men and women, but all my clients have been men, they've put their life on the line for our country, and this is how they're treated when they come back. It's just so irresponsible. I really think that the American taxpayers would be shocked to find out how poorly our veterans are being treated.
I don't know. My contention's been from day one, a long, long time ago, when the first Bush was out there and Ted Kennedy was even alive and operating. If a guy gets, I don't know where the criteria is. I'm going to go with completes his tour or gets injured and isn't able to, or has an honorable discharge. Just flash that card and you go to any hospital you can get to, and they're supposed to take care of you. Every hospital in the country is set to take government funding, pay through Medicare, Medicaid. Just add another category on there for veterans and let them go to the dang doctor. It's a joke what happens to them. We have to go most of the time. There's a little bit of service provided here, but our guys in Brownwood have to get all the way to Temple to get service. Right. And then here's the other thing. If a veteran's lucky enough to come back and get a job, he can make too much money and be denied coverage altogether.
Right.
That's such bull. I mean, it's nauseating.
Mm-hmm. Well, Grace,
I couldn't agree more. I think that your idea is perfect. Any hospital in the country should be paid to treat the veterans.
And you say that this situation right here could be remedied with a stroke of a pen, and they could do it very quickly, correct?
It could be. Now, that's not a permanent solution because the next administration could change it again, right? The permanent solution lies with Congress. But I did take a little bit of offense when it was portrayed as if only Congress could fix this, when I know better.
Well, we have been talking this morning to Grace Weatherly. She's an attorney in Denton, Texas. Grace, where might our listeners find you?
I'm in Denton, Texas. My firm is Wood Weatherly Trial Law, and they can find me online.
All right, Grace Weatherly, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.